But our top story tonight, the day after Bob Mueller broke his silence, is something that you may have seen before. It is a pattern the Trump administration has settled on when dealing with Bob Mueller's sometimes explosive and negative findings. Let me tell you exactly what this is. I call it the Mueller sandwich. Like any sandwich, the title comes from the meat, in this case, Mueller. But Team Trump figured out a way to blunt what they may view as the bitter taste of Mueller's meaty evidence by sandwiching him with a lot of Barr. You remember there was a lot of Barr before any of the Mueller report came out. There was more Barr during that unusual press conference to upstage the report on the very day it came out. And now that Bob Mueller has spoken for what he says he hopes to be the last time, well, guess what? Mueller sandwich. Barr out today, again muddying Mueller's careful explanation of how the rules prohibit indicting a president, because true to the sandwich, Barr is making his own news. And he is the Attorney General, so what he says matters. And he is claiming that Mueller could have reached a decision on that very indictment point.
I personally felt he could have reached a decision.
In your view, he could have reached a conclusion.
Right, he could have reached a conclusion. The opinion says you cannot indict a president while he's in office, but he could have reached a decision as to whether it was criminal activity. But he had his reasons for not doing it, which he explained, and I'm not going to, argue about those reasons.
Just think through Barr's claim right there. He's saying he would prefer that Bob Mueller conclude that Donald Trump committed criminal activity on obstruction without indicting him. How can I say this nicely? That's very hard to believe. And also, if that is what Barr preferred and demanded, he could have demanded it. Barr was Mueller's boss until yesterday. He could order Mueller to update the report with that very decision if he wanted. He didn't. He made the decision for himself.
But when he didn't make a decision, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, and I felt it was necessary for us, as the heads of the department, to reach that decision.
Well, I mean, he seemed to suggest yesterday that there was another venue for this, and that was Congress.
Well, I'm not sure what he was suggesting, but, the Department of Justice doesn't use our powers of investigating crimes as an adjunct to Congress.
That's the sound of a very smart, very informed lawyer claiming to be confused, unsure. He just doesn't get what Mueller suggested yesterday. That is a tell. By proclaiming his confusion, Barr can claim he's not even really taking a position, that Mueller's remarks went whoosh over his head. But all Mueller did was quote the DOJ's own rule that the president's employees don't accuse him of wrongdoing. That's the role of Congress.
The opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing.
And the number of Democrats tonight now pushing to make that formal accusal, to use Mueller's words, is growing. The calls for impeachment has hit 50 now. The chairman of the powerful House Rules Committee breaking with Pelosi and echoing Mueller's implication that the time for talking is over.
I believe, quite frankly, that the next step is for the House Judiciary Committee to open an inquiry to formally begin considering whether impeachment is warranted. I think we're at that point. Quite frankly, we're beyond talking about this in terms of political implications. I mean, we have to do what's right.
President Trump took the debate head on today, telling reporters Mueller's new remarks were the same as the report, that part's true, and then stating his revulsion at the very word impeachment.
I don't see how they can, because they're possibly allowed, although I can't imagine the courts allowing it. I've never gone into it. I never thought that would even be possible to be using that word. To me, it's a dirty word, the word impeach. It's a dirty, filthy, disgusting word.
Filthy. I'm joined by the Center for American Progress Action Fund's Juanita Tolliver, David Frum, former speechwriter for George W. Bush and a senior editor at The Atlantic, and Congressman Brad Sherman, who's calling for impeachment and introduced an impeachment resolution this year.
Ari, I'm not sure you're describing my position accurately, but we'll get to it.
We'll get to it right now. Go for it.
Look, the president obstructed justice. That was apparent to me in July of 2017 when I introduced articles of impeachment. But I knew those articles couldn't lead anywhere without bipartisan support because, of course, Republicans were in control. prosecutors don't indict unless they think they can get a conviction. We need to change public opinion so that we'll get a fair hearing in the United States Senate.
What was
because impeachment without removal?
What was inaccurate about then mentioning that you're for impeachment?
Well, certainly I think he should be. Well, impeachment and removal is a package, and to impeach without removal is I think a mistake. It has some advantages, but it has some disadvantages.
But it is correct to say you've been pushing towards impeachment.
I've been pushing towards impeachment,
okay.
But I want impeachment on a bipartisan basis.
Great.
Yes.
But I got to correct your correction then.
Oversimplification, perhaps. I think I've.
No,
I've
I mean, I don't know what you're doing, sir. You're advocating for impeachment. You introduced a resolution for impeachment. Now, you're the politician. I want to get the other panelists in. You can use your time as you see fit. I appreciate you coming on the show. Do you want to talk about the case that you're making for impeachment?
Actually, I've been trying to get on your show to talk about the Saudi nuclear program. And if it was my time, we'd be talking about efforts to control drug prices. There's this image in the country that Congress is focused only on impeachment. That's the only thing I can get on TV to talk about, but it's not really what I'm working on.
Interesting. Well, look, we do a lot of subjects here. We can get into that stuff. Bob Mueller broke his silence yesterday and said this is an issue for the Congress if there's a wrongdoing to be accused. So it is a big news story. I don't think that's in debate. Before I move on to the panelists, sir, what do you think is the most important thing for Congress to do now, given what Mueller said and that he's resigned?
Investigate. Do what Sam Ervin did with his investigatory committee in the Senate in 1973. Show the American people what the facts are. Have Mueller testify, but also reveal other facts beyond what's just in the narrow confines of the Mueller report.
Yeah.
And hope that we can get a change in public opinion that will lead to a change in the attitude of Republican senators. It's a tough thing to do, but if we just expose Trump for what he's done, if we're unable to remove him now, we've got next year.
And Juanita, having listened to the congressman there, he's talking about, of course, the divide when you talk about anything that requires a supermajority. Listen to what the president said this morning. It is sometimes common to point out everything he says that's wrong, and he lies more than any other president we've had. But he did say something that is both true and that I think will resonate with his supporters, that basically, while yesterday was dramatic and important and the first time you hear from Bob Mueller, you're going to talk about it. The president underscored the idea that there was nothing new yesterday that wasn't already in the report. Take a look.
It was, to me, the same as the report. And there's no obstruction. You see what we're saying. There's no obstruction. There's no collusion. There's no nothing. It's nothing but a witch hunt. I think he is a total conflicted person. I think Mueller is a true never-Trumper. He's somebody that dislikes Donald Trump.
Juanita, your view of what the president's arguing there and how that connects with any larger attempt to shape public opinion.
Yeah, look, first and foremost, in his mind, this is case closed. But the reality is Mueller just reiterated what he wrote in the report and referred the matter to Congress. He said there was not insufficient evidence to make a broad claim of conspiracy here, but that there is something that needs to be looked into. I think the other thing that Mueller raised yesterday that really piqued my interest was confirming that Russians interfered in the election, something that essentially Trump admitted to and agreed with today, though he backtracked quickly, said that Russia interfered and helped him win. So I think what he's trying to do is, of course, get his base to believe that the case is closed here, which is ultimately a lie, and his effort to really distract attention away from a bigger matter here that needs to be dug into in Congress.
David, you've been unsparing in your criticism of what you see as many failures of Donald Trump, policy, ethical, and otherwise. But you have a different view about how to deal with all this. What is that?
I think I agree with Congressman Sherman. What Congress needs to do is get out to the bottom of many facts that either Robert Mueller didn't answer or didn't investigate. For example, Robert Mueller did not look at the whole question of why. Why would Russia take these enormous risks to help elect Donald Trump? What was in it for them? Why did they have so much confidence that he was a better choice for them than Hillary Clinton? Bob Mueller didn't really look at that question, but the answers may be, for example, in Donald Trump's accounting documents or in his income tax returns. But to proceed now with an impeachment is to go down a path which President Trump is surely going to win. that he has the votes in the Senate. And if the Senate rebuffs the House, then Donald Trump is going to claim before the 2020 election, I got my hearing, my critics did their worst, and I was acquitted. That's the wrong way to go. What you want to do is go down a path that will lead to success, that will get information, and as the congressman said, shape the mind of the country simply to understand what they're dealing with. Very few people read the Mueller report. That's one of the things that Bob Mueller is complaining about. But to help the mind of the country understand what kind of person this president is, what his connections are, how he became the president in the first place, this is an educative task that calls for those kinds of hearings, not an argument about the technicalities of obstruction and what the appropriate penalty is for facts that the public still doesn't know it fully.
David, does it matter to you? Should it matter that Attorney General Barr, as we just showed, and I'm going to play a little more in this brand new interview, the most careful way I can say it seems to be willfully muddying the public understanding, and he is the Attorney General of the United States. So it should matter, even if people have maybe perhaps lower expectations given the conduct thus far. Take a look at him and compare it to Mueller right here.
We specifically asked him about the OLC opinion and whether or not he was taking the position that he would have found a crime but for the existence of the OLC opinion. And he made it very clear several times that that was not his position.
So that was Justice Department policy. Those were the principles under which we operated. And from them, we concluded that we would not reach a determination one way or the other about whether the president committed a crime.
As I reported last night, David, a Mueller spokesperson personally assured me that those two things are not in any conflict and that Mueller's this team player. A lot of other people see conflict. Do you think that AG Barr here has been on the level?
No, of course not. If he were an honorable and forthright person, he wouldn't have gotten the job in the first place. The most important bona fide job qualification for this job in President Trump's eyes is to be a dishonorable person. And when he discovered that Jeff Sessions was more honorable than Donald Trump could stomach, he campaigned against him. But these intellectual assessments, these moral assessments, should not drive your political judgment of what are going to be the probable political consequences of walking down a certain path. Politicians have to be judged by results in the end, and the results of commencing impeachment now are going to be to Donald Trump's benefit, not to the country's.
Juanita?
Yeah, I think one additional thing about Barr, not only is he just this person who seems to lack a degree of integrity, but he is extremely loyal to Trump and has played to Trump repeatedly, whether it's in congressional hearings, whether it's in the summary letter where he announced this was a total exoneration, which is a jarring juxtaposition to what Special Counsel Mueller presented repeatedly. And even in the letter when Special Counsel Mueller challenged Barr because he said his summary did not capture the context or the substance of the report. And he was actively working to mislead the American people, which is something Trump actively is doing.
Juanita, you're putting your finger right on it, as you often do. Yeah. Did that surprise you that we know Mueller disagreed with Barr about that, and yet yesterday he clearly tried to steer clear of that?
He tried to steer clear of it because he's a man of integrity and he's hyper-focused on his mission. I think that's one thing that you can take away from his comments yesterday related to the fact that you cannot indict a president. So, of course, I wasn't going to go down that route. And I think that Barr nor Trump know what to do with that. They don't know what to do with a person who operates with that degree of integrity. And so you have Trump going on multiple rants today, tweeting up a storm, again, distracting from his failures as a leader, but really actively working to mislead the American people.
Juanita Tolliver, David Frum, and Congressman Brad Sherman, thanks to each of you for kicking off our coverage tonight. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.